Hi again, everybody. Welcome into an all-new episode of When the Game Ends, episode number 18. Ben Holden, Mike Carmen, and happy to say that Carmi is back in, well, you're back in this. Are you in the same room or just the same hotel that when we did our first episode, when I grilled you to start our podcast back in late September?
I am in the same hotel, not the same room, but I'm so far 0 for 2 in getting a room that faces the lake. And so I'm looking at the parking lot again. So maybe the next time I come, I'll get it right and actually pick the right side of the building.
You got to use those Marriott points, man. I mean, there can't be that many people in Marquette, Michigan, are there?
There are not many people at this hotel. There's maybe 10 cars in the parking lot right now.
All right. Well, with all that said, by the way, I have your Gophers this Saturday at Michigan. You know that, but for those out there watching, so big tilt for both teams from Yo. So looking forward to that. Your guys were off last week. I had Michigan State, and your guys are in good position to try to get first in the Big Ten.
It's a good segue because we have a Gopher coming on the podcast. So, we've had, I think North Dakota might be the leading alumni group right now that's been on the podcast. So we need to even it up. And I'm glad we have our guest coming on today.
Yes, 2 in a row. We had Paul Martin on a couple of weeks ago. We had a rugby player on USA Eagle, Chris Mattina, last week. And yes, Gigi Marvin. And let's get to her here. Let's just each give a thought. This is by far and away, Carmi, the most decorated athlete that's retired that we've had on yet. What an incredible career that Gigi had. If you know hockey and you know USA Hockey, you know who she is. An absolute legend. Started in Warroad, Minnesota. Went on to play, as you mentioned, at the U. Spent a dozen years with the U.S. women's national team. Gold medalist. Played in 3 Olympics. I mean, what an amazing career.
I mean, you could have read on for another 5 minutes with all the accolades and experiences she's had as a player. And Gigi and I overlapped at school for 3 of the 4 years we were there. And I remember I didn't make it to a ton of the women's games just because schedules obviously didn't line up very well. But I remember watching several games her senior year, and just what a player. I mean, it's so fun to watch, so talented, and just a workhorse out there. So I'm excited that she's able to join us today.
Well, she is, and through the magic of StreamYard and television, there she is. Gigi, thanks for coming on. Are you in Boston, Minnesota? Where exactly are you? Let's start there.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I'm in Boston.
Okay. That's become like your second home, I understand. You've been out there. Is that where all the women's national teams kind of trained? Is that why you ended up out there?
So we were here for the 2014 Olympics, but the 2010 Olympics, right after my 4th year of college, was in Minnesota. So that was really nice. But then ever since then, I've kind of been in Boston, just on and off since 2011, actually. But I'm always home in Minnesota in the summers to run my hockey camps and enjoy life on the lake and hang with the family and friends.
So before we go into hockey, Gigi, I had to fill Ben in. We were talking about, kind of the legend of Warroad, Minnesota, and the real hockey town, USA. It's not Detroit, Ben. And it's fun that, kind of like for such a small community, all the successful players that have come out of there. But I educated Ben, which is a switch, because usually he's educating me on some fact I don't know about your family and the connection to Marvin Windows. And so I told Ben, I was like, yep, when you think of Warroad, Minnesota, you think of the Marvin family.
There's a lot of them for sure. My dad is one of 12. And so you can imagine how many cousins I had. And it seemed we live on the river, and it seemed like every family member also lived on the river. So you could like kayak and canoe to your friend's house, and the friend would be your family member. You'd be hanging out with your cousin, or take the boat up the river and say, hey, you want to go fishing? You want to go water skiing? And so, yeah, there's quite a few of us, and I'm grateful. I'm really thankful for my family and just the people that they are, and how they've helped me along with my career.
Well, I do know this about Warroad. Obviously, you and TJ and others, a guy named Jess Myers, who I know you know well.
Yeah.
I've told Jess through our connection with college hockey for the last decade, maybe you can do something. You probably actually have some pull in that town, unlike him. I'm kidding about Jess. I love him. He's a great guy. Yeah. But I've told him for years I would come up for free to call the Warroad Roseau high school game. I mean, I understand the significance of how big that is in your neck of the woods up there in God country. Anything you might be able to do to help me out there?
Oh, I'm sure we could get you up there. That would be amazing. We would love to have you. I mean, yeah, in the Warroad Roseau games, there's nothing like it. I remember when I was just little, like say a mite age 7 or 8, and it was the coolest thing to be in. Like your dad's kind of like, "Hey, do you want to go to the Warroad Roseau game?" And you're like, "Yes, I'm finally old enough." It felt like to go and fit in there because I mean, it's packed. It's jam packed, and our parents are probably all worried that their kids are going to get lost because there's so many people in the building, but. I remember my first time when I was just little and the excitement of getting to go and witness that.
Good stuff.
Hey, Ben, I don't know if you're familiar either. Warroad has probably the nicest, if not one of the nicest. It's up there for sure in the country for youth hockey arenas or amateur hockey arenas, you want to call it. So
Yeah.
it might rival your accommodations at Little Caesars that you were at on Friday in terms of broadcasting.
Well, I don't know, but I just know I have great respect for where you're from, Gigi. And, let's kind of start with that. Carmi was talking about, your family and your grandfather, I understand, I had no idea about your grandfather and your family lineage. So, I mean, was there ever any question that you would grow up to be a hockey player is my question to begin here.
There was none. Like I didn't have a choice in the matter. I had skates put on me literally when I was in a high chair just to get used to them. I'd be walking around the carpet right after I could stand and like basically walk in skates just so that I would be familiarized with them. And it just so happened I fell in love with the game. And so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, I had I mean, so many uncles and aunts who played hockey. My dad, obviously, and then of course my grandpa, who was just so well known and so many Hockey Hall of Fames, coached so many different players across the world. And so learned a lot from them, and it's been quite a ride still.
Did you play boys or girls growing up until high school? Because I think you started playing varsity, I want to say in like 8th grade, something like that.
Yes.
Were you playing boys hockey up till that point?
Yep, I played boys through my second year of Pee Wees, which would have been then, yeah, 8th grade. I started with varsity varsity girls.
I figured that's similar to a lot of I think a lot of the women's players your age. Natalie Darwitz was another one I know played boys hockey forever too. How do you feel like that prepared you for kind of not only high school hockey but playing at the next level? Did you know when you stepped onto the what's the 8th grade when you stepped onto the varsity ice that you could kind of feel the difference of having played with boys for that long with the speed of the game, or how do you feel like that benefited you?
It benefited me a lot. I grew up with an extremely talented group. Like the boys, they won 2 state titles when we were in high school. We won as a sophomores and as seniors. And so they were insanely talented. I think 5 just from that team alone went and played D1, and almost all of them were captains of their teams. And so it was fun. I was forced to think the game at a very fast level. I was forced to dish the puck. Like we were very much a puck moving team, possession team. And so it was a noticeable change when I went to girls because the level just wasn't the same, because it was literally the second year of varsity girls hockey in Warroad and just like the beginnings of girls hockey in the whole state of Minnesota. And so there wasn't girls like me who skated since they were tiny. We had some players who literally put skates on for the first, well, not for the first time, but just kind of came out just to field a roster. And so it was quite a difference. But also saying that, we had really talented players too, just because of like myself, I grew up with the guys, and there's a handful at least of other players who grew up with the guys. But it was you kind of had like the high end and then the rookies, if you will. And so it was quite a mix, but it was still really enjoyable and fun.
Yeah, I was just say I can imagine you weren't the only one that grew up, with a lot of male cousins and siblings, and kind of driving that competitive nature from the get go. We were talking about, we had Mario Lamoureux on, and we're like, man, I kind of wonder what your guys' pond hockey or knee hockey games would have looked like with all of you going at it. I'm sure you had a similar experience growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, we always had one of our favorite things, but the Lammers, I don't think anyone can hold a candle to them and what they might have gone through as young kids. But for us, the Marvins, what was fun is we always had a Christmas Day skate where it was the boys versus the girls, and it was just so fun. We would do it. We'd open the rink up, or we just skate outside on the outdoor rink. And yeah, those games are good. And so again, like we would invite our friends, and like you mentioned, there's a lot who had brothers who competed. And so it was natural for the sisters to skate too. There just wasn't as many outlets. So we joined with the boys, but it made for great teammates. And of course, the people who were just kind of like rookies and learning to skate, we were still very grateful because we needed them. We needed to have a full roster in order to compete.
You know, Ben, real quick before you keep going, that's
Yeah.
one thing I feel like that's missing from today's game. So many of these kids, everything has to be structured for them now, or they don't go do it right. And like I remember, probably not to the extent that you guys did up there, but I was on the pond or the outdoor rink quite a bit as a kid, and I feel like that's where you learn to kind of hone your skills, at least when we were coming up. Like whether it's playing against guys older than you, mixing levels of play, you know, playing 10 on 10 and having to learn how to stick handle through 10 people.
Right.
I wish I'd see more of that. It always bums me out in the winters when I'm driving around and I don't see any kids on the outdoor rink. It's kind of a sad that it's trending that way. But I imagine up in Warroad, Roseau, some of the northern parts of the state, there's still a good amount of kids going out there. But definitely miss it. Yeah,
no, you're right. It's I credit that to a lot of my development. And I mean, I'd just skate after school with my high school. So say I'm in 8th grade, I'd skate in my high school practice from 3:30 to 5 after school. Then I'd go and skate with my dad's peewee practice, which is like 6th, 7th graders. And then I'd go home, have dinner, and then come back and skate with my grandpa's Laker team, which is all like amateurs, like older men who are like insanely fast and talented, good. And so you learn different things in these different groups. Your stick handling, like you're mentioning, Mike, of stick handling in a phone booth with 10 people out there, or maybe you go to open hockey and you're with a bunch of variety of kids. You learn something new, whether it's the speed of the game is too fast for you, so you're supposed to think quicker, or maybe it's slowed down because you're with not as great players and you can work on your stick handling, try out new moves. You can increase your hockey awareness. And so, yeah, it's really fun for me to go back and still see the diversity of ages on the ice. And like I look at my little nephew, he's 8. He doesn't care if he's going up against a 40-year-old, a 4-year-old, or a 14-year-old. He's like, I'm gonna win the puck. Like, let's go. Like, I'm gonna take the puck from you. Like, there's no intimidation. There's just pure joy of, hey, you're gonna compete against me. I'm gonna compete against you. Bring it. Like, it's going down. And it's really fun to see that kind of environment and see the kids just really thrive in it.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, Gigi. So in regards to your career, you had, the male dominance with the hockey, as you're telling us. Was there a female player, and who was it, if so, that you first looked up to and you first idolized? Did you have that person?
Yeah, it would have been what Mike mentioned with Natalie Darwitz, and then Chrissy Wendell, like both those two players. And so and again, I didn't even know about women's hockey until I saw the Olympics in '98. And I was like, oh, that's what I want. That's what I can do. Like, I want to be an Olympic champion. And so, because all growing up before that, I was like all my buddies and all the guys being like, yeah, Stanley Cup champion, Game 7, overtime winning goal. Like, I scored it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, that's probably not going to happen. It's this Olympic gold medal that I can chase instead. And so, it would have been watching Chrissy and Natalie compete.
Okay. So a quick follow-up to that. Now that you've gone through the career, you're retired. Are you done this time? Is this it for sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm kidding, but you're done now. So throughout the years, like, this is one of the biggest things I thought about before Carmi, got you to come on with us. And we were talking the last couple of days through text, like the impact that you and your teammates have had on hockey in this country. When you hear that, what goes through your mind? And maybe share some experiences of a story. Maybe you've met somebody 10 years ago and now they're playing in college. Do you have something that fits in that vein?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've run a hockey camp since I was a sophomore at the U. And so it's been like 18 years. And so I've seen so many girls like grow up and boys. I coached a couple of boys who play for BC now, and I get to watch them in person and watch them dominate. And so it's to be able to see these young players grow up and compete. But I think for me, it's more so even in 2017, what sticks out to me is we boycotted as women national team members to be like, this is, we need a change for women and girls all across USA Hockey. And that was the most significant thing that my teammates and I have ever done. And that's saying, I know we won an Olympic gold medal, but it's nothing compared to what we did in allowing access and change and structural change at the youngest levels and the highest levels for women and girls across the country. And so like my little niece will be able to grow up. She's the same as how I grew up. I was older by a year than my brother, but he had so many more opportunities because he was a boy. It didn't matter who was more talented. It didn't matter who was more skilled or more gifted or worked harder. He was a boy. And so therefore he had a different path. And there was no way I could, like, the door wasn't open for me. Whereas now my niece, who's older than my little nephew, she has the same opportunities where there's a path for her. There's more opportunities than there was previously. And so I'm just like, it's just cool to see. And even with the PWHL, the league that I played in last year, like that was never usually the dream was to go to college. And then maybe if you're one of 20, you can make an Olympic team every 4 years. You have to be the best of the best. Whereas now, yes, the dream is to go to college, but more so it's like, and international, but now you can play in a league, just like, the guys have the NHL, there's the PWHL. And so I think for me, it's just being able to skate on the ice last year and witnessing all the young girls come to the arena and be like, wow, I can actually do that when I'm older. There's a path for me. Whereas for myself, there was no path. There was nothing available. And so it's pretty cool to like look and see that there's a path now for my little niece, if she so chooses, or if she has the ability to, and my other little girl cousins. So it's pretty cool to kind of see the change over the past however long I've been playing. And so, which has been a while, but anyways, so it's cool to see that.
That's awesome. So that's really cool. Go ahead, Carmi.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want to touch on that, and you brought it up with but before we go to that, she brought up her brother Ben, Aaron, who's my age, and I played against Aaron in college. I went to the select USA festivals with him and stuff. I would take Gigi 100 times out of 100 one-on-one against her brother. I hope he hears that.
I'm not surprised.
No, I'm just kidding. I haven't talked to him in forever, but I first met him at a select festival, and we actually played on a line together. I remember that, so it was fun.
Yeah.
What I was going to ask is 2017, and I think Ben and I both had this in our notes. Obviously, this extremely monumental point in women's hockey. How much of an impact do you think that strike that you guys had, or sitting out the World Championships, had on the creation of the PWHL? Because there were obviously other women's professional leagues that tried and failed. Was there anything that you think that had to do with that strike, and then you guys, kind of realizing and making the public realize what you needed to succeed, that led to the development of the PWHL?
Yeah, I think it 100% did, because we took even the lawyers that we used to help us create a new league, because again, it was titled professional, but really there's nothing professional. Like, it was just kind of a landing spot post college. We still, like, my niece and nephew skated more than I did. We would only skate after the 9 to 5 jobs were done. So the ice time would be twice a week at like 9 p.m. at night. And then you travel on the weekends. Sometimes you wouldn't have an equipment manager. You wouldn't have a medical trainer. You wouldn't have like all these things that you just are so commonplace for a youth team, much less college. I mean, college was like prime for a woman to, you're like, you want to stay in college as long as you want. There's none of this jumping to the next level. It's like, how can we stay in college longer? And so to utilize the unity that we had with that boycott, but then also the intelligence we gathered from the information we kind of gathered, and then utilizing our lawyers, like, to be able to jumpstart and create something that we're like, this is going to be sustainable. We like the product we have is outstanding. Like that, you look at the different numbers of who watches women's hockey, especially the US-Canada game. Like it's evident that the product can stand the test. So how can we come together and fight for this change where there's a league where routinely we're seeing 18,000 people come to watch, not even US-Canada, but just a pro league of Boston versus Montreal, pro women's hockey. And so I think that was huge for us to be able to take what we learned And then now we have a league, and people are like, oh, it must feel great to have a league. And what's the biggest deal? Like, what's the biggest thing? And I'm like, honestly, the fact that I can skate every day and like, I don't have to bring my skates to Pure Hockey to get sharpened. I actually have an equipment manager who, if I get I step on a shaft or something, I can just go right to the bench and pop my skate blades out and get new ones, and he'll sharpen them right then and there. And they're like, wait, what? That's really they just don't understand the difference of what we had versus what we have now with the PWHL. And so that played a significant part in the creation of this, because it did take a long time. I mean, it was 2017 until 2024. Like, that's quite a long time of years, and kind of trying to find the right model, trying to find the right people to support us and all that stuff.
So I have a follow-up to that. So the U.S. women's soccer team did the same thing. So did they lean on you? I mean, how did that all work?
We actually were able to utilize a lot of the similar lawyers who was able to initiate some of that change. And so, and some of us had worked out and trained with some of the U.S. soccer players. And so it's just helpful to learn from them, hear from them. So yeah, that was definitely a similar process.
Yeah. So I had a follow-up too. I was curious, I was reading a little bit, but obviously you're going to be able to share a little more, I think. What were some of the biggest challenges, and there might be a lot, what were some of the biggest challenges before the creation of the PWHL, before you guys sat out in 2017? What were some of the best changes you saw on the flip side of that after 2018 and with the creation of PWHL, creating a true pro environment?
Yeah, the hardest thing was you couldn't just be an athlete. Like, you had to figure out where you're going to play. You had to figure out extra ice time. So like, I literally became familiar with all the local Boston rinks. Like, I have all the rink guys basically on speed dial being like, hey, do you have open ice? Hey, when do you have, and then you tell your teammates who are in your area, hey, let's try to get together on a Wednesday morning. Looks like we can buy ice. So you're buying ice. You're not being fully funded. So you have to work other jobs. I own a hockey camp, and I did speaking engagements. And so you're not a full-time athlete because you have to also make money. And so whatever the job is, some people were lawyers, educators, coaches, teachers, like it kind of across the board. But then you also have to be your equipment manager. You have to like be on the phone with USA Hockey, or if you're lucky enough to have an agent, hey, I need my gear. I don't have my gear, or my stick breaks and I need some more. Like, you have to get that shipped in. You have to bring your stuff to Pure Hockey, get it fixed. If you have time, you have to figure out, where am I going to go for a doctor? How am I going to get a massage? Who's going to be my physical therapist? Like, who's going to train me? Got to pay out of pocket to find a strength coach. Got to find like all these things. Whereas at the U, or like,
you took for granted. You take it for granted.
Yeah, like you walk in, you just drop your loop off at Ritter, then you're like, hey, where's Dieter? Dieter, tell me, what do I do? You just like, Cal Dietz, our strength coach back at the U, like he'll just tell you what to do. He has a schedule. He has the programming. He has the post-practice recovery shakes that's accessible to you. He has the pre stuff that you do use, and the electrolyte mix during. I mean, all these things are so simple and easily accessible. You have meals handed to you. You have meals made. You have a dietitian. So you have to find your own coach sometimes, like all these things you're doing. And so the flip of that, the positive, is we had an equipment manager. We had 3 full-time coaches. We actually had a skills coach, which we've never had. We had a goaltender coach, which the 2018 Olympic team didn't have a goaltending coach. Like, wow. We're talking the Olympic champions didn't have a goaltending coach. And so now we have one. We can skate at healthy hours, like normal hours. So wake up in the morning and you can train, and then you can skate, and you can stay and skate after if you want. And you have an athletic trainer right there in the building who can help you out. And I mean, it's just crazy. Like those little supporting elements that we take for granted that are handed out to anyone in college. And then of course at the NHL level, those are some of the things that we valued and made it professional, and we had food provided for us, like immediately, knowing that we're training and how important nutrient timing is. And so just random little things that people would already assume we have. I'm like, no. Like, this is brand new. We've never had that before.
Real quick, Ben, I can't even imagine the stress of trying to be at the top of your game, not having all these things provided for you, having to go take the energy to seek that out on top of working a job. And on the kicker and all of this being, that stuff's not cheap. Like
Right.
strength coaches, ice time, nutrition, all that stuff costs money. It's the healthier you want to be, the more it costs. That's what I always say.
Yep.
And it's, I can't even imagine how you guys balance that out. So that's really incredible to kind of hear all those struggles. I mean, I knew it wasn't glamorous to a point, but I didn't realize it was that hands off from USA Hockey. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That really is. And like, two things real quick for me. So I did a lot of lacrosse in a pro league, and I was listening to you talk, and it was very similar. Now the PLL, they've taken it to another level with Paul Rabel. Of course, I don't know how much you know about Paul Rabel or lacrosse, but he was a pioneer in the sport like you and your teammates were that did what you did, and you changed it. I mean, these guys have played in Major League Lacrosse for 5 years. I was doing games in that league. They were doing the same thing. They worked, they flew in, they had one practice, they went out and played a game, and it was amazing. So the point I wanted to make to you here on this, and after listening to you, there's the old adage, you leave the game better than you found it. And you and all your teammates from USA clearly did that, but you've taken it to a place it's never been. So to be a part of that now, Gigi, how's that make you feel?
It's awesome. Honestly, like I would have, it's emotional. Like people ask me about just what does it feel like to skate last year in the PWHL and to see these little girls with their signs come to our games and witness what they can actually be when they're older is incredible, because that wasn't the case for myself or any of my teammates. And so to be able to provide a dream where people can grow up and compete at the highest level and earn a living and be treated as a pro and have all these amenities that are considered normal, right? That we now actually have access to them. And it's really cool to be able to see that and experience that.
That's great.
Yeah, you talk about experiences and stuff. You were telling the story about all the boys are saying Game 7 Stanley Cup winner, and what that's like. And I don't know if that's going to be me. But the gold medal in the Olympics, I would imagine, is probably right up there for you in terms of that feeling. Share with us a couple stories from that Olympics and that run and that experience, especially after all of the stress 2017 brought on. Finally having that cleared out, ready to focus on, winning the gold.
Yeah, that was easily the best Olympics. People are always like, which is your favorite? And I'm like, well, obviously the one we won.
Right.
Granted, each Olympics is special for their own unique reasoning, but definitely the gold in 2018. And so it was, and honestly, what a way to win it. I mean, it's not like we couldn't just win in the game. We couldn't just win in the shootout. We couldn't even just win it in the overtime in the shootout, because we went to extra players in the shootout, like extra shoot. I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, it was probably the most stressful thing. I love playing the game. It was one of the most peaceful game I've ever played, but I've never been so stressed in my life when I realized like I had no more control. Like after I went in the shootout, I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I'm a fan at this point. I'm just, all I can do is watch. And so I'm watching Maddie Rooney like save all the Canada shots. And then all of a sudden Joss finally goes. And I remember standing on the bench. My heart was like exploding through my chest. And she was just like casually skating to the right and then cuts back slowly to the left, right? Does the whole like, and I'm just like, go score already. What is taking you so long? And then she goes ahead and pulls off one of the sickest moves in Olympic shootout history. And I'm just like, okay, that was gorgeous. Like, great. But like, you could have done it faster. Like, I'm having a heart attack on the bench. And so it was, it was such a crazy moment. And it was really fun for me personally. It was my third Olympics. And so, that's 12 years alone, not counting since I was 10 and witnessed the gold medal and like my dream started. And so it was a long time coming, but I had my parents in the stands, my brother and his wife in the stands, and then I ended up having 6 of my friends fly out, and they were all in the building. They were actually in the rink at the end behind where I scored in the shootout, losing their mind. And it was so cool. Like, I had no idea until after it, I saw all these pictures. And so it was just like really special and fun to be able to celebrate not only with my teammates, but then also with 10 other people who had came over to support me. Like in Korea, they chose to come all the way to Korea.
Man, you weren't the only one freaking out, Gigi. I remember sitting up watching that game at whatever time it was. By the time it's like, oh, now we're going to overtime. Now we're going to a shootout. This is getting later and later. I'm not going to be able to go to sleep tonight because I'm going to be so wired. So I'm glad you guys pulled it out. And that was an absolutely incredible move. I remember just jaw dropping. That's one of the best shootout moves I've ever seen in my life. It was insane.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it was like watching from the bench.
Yeah. Well, I was just like, do it faster. Like, come on, Josh. Like,
it was so slow. It was so slow.
And it was really funny because it was about the same. I mean, maybe it was like 4 years after. It seems like it was right around the time though, where that started to become the fad, if you will, like the trend during shootouts to go really slowly out wide. And, because for a while people were just going down straight. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're doing one of these. Okay, let's go.
Carmi, I think you mentioned this, but you scored one in the shootout, right?
Well, yeah. And what's funny is I'm thinking like, so I'm going down, and I had done quite a few shootouts with Team USA before, and we had to shoot out the day before in practice. And, I was just like, that's just kind of something that I do often. And so I was ready for it. I just didn't know which number I was going in. So the coach was like, all right, Gigi, you're going to go first. And so I'm like, great. I got my move. I'll like figure out how she responds to it. And then I'll like figure out if I do the first one or the second one. So I'm going down, and all of a sudden, like I kind of pull, like I fake and I pull, like I lean to the left. Well, she's not following me, the goalie. She's just standing dead center in the middle of the net. And I'm like, what is she doing? What happened? All of a sudden I realized my stick had completely went over top the puck. Ooh. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the puck's over there. So I had to like adjust mid move, go back against the grain and shoot it underneath her glove that was already extending to try to like cover the puck. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, and what's funny is Kucherov at that time was doing a move where he would stick handle over the puck purposely to miss it and then have the puck go 5-hole. Well, everyone thought I was doing that move. Like all the fans, people back home when I got there, and everyone's saying this. And, I don't correct them at all. But what's funny is when I get to Warroad, every one of my little cousins, the second they heard that, they go, Gigi, you missed the puck. Like, you screwed that up. I'm like, come on, guys. Can't you just not be diehard hockey fans and know for us, like, just have my back for a second and pretend that I did that on purpose, like the Kucherov? But, yeah, it was pretty funny because I was just, like, panicking. Like, I'm like, why is the goalie not biting? She's supposed to bite with me, and I'll either go backhand top shelf or come back around. And no, she was just hanging out there because I forgot to bring the puck with me.
Well, Warroad's been known to have some good shootout people, so I'm guessing you got a phone call from TJ on that one, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's so funny because I mean, we would do shootouts every Sunday. We would always skate together, the guys' high school and girls' high school from Price. We had ice 6 o'clock until the rest of the night. Like sometimes it'd be 11 p.m. before we would go home. And we would always end on a shootout, and it was so fun. And so what's cool about 2014 is it was almost the same situation where I had, like, it felt like I was back in high school because I just practiced at one arena. We got done. I'd run across and catch the Russia-Canada or Russia-US men's game, second period. So me and my teammates are sitting in the stands in the athlete section. Sure enough, obviously it goes to a shootout, and everyone's like, Gigi, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'll tell you every move he's going to do. Like, it's not even a question. Like I've seen him do this every single Sunday for like years. And so it was so cool and crazy to see him succeed on such a high level. I mean, like, just ice in his veins, right? Like it just doesn't even faze him. And it was just so fun to watch. And it was, like so proud, such a proud moment for me. But I know everyone across the states was just like, wow, this kid is just insane.
Well, before Carmi goes, since we're on the subject, I have to ask about this, and it involves TJ, and you may know where I'm going here. I saw in a couple different spots that the two of you had some kind of scrap or a little fight.
Yeah.
Number one, is that true? And number two, if it is, can you expand on that story?
Yeah, because Henry Boucher was there too, and
Wow.
like we were just little, and I don't know, I'm insanely competitive, and I always joke with my mom. I'm like, Mom, how did you handle me as a kid? Because I was so competitive, and my mom's the most opposite human being on the planet. Like, she's like, oh, is it my turn? Like, if we're playing a board game, she'll like forget it's her turn, or like forget to if you're playing checkers, like she'll forget to double jump and give yourself a kick. I'm like, Mom, like, where did I come from? So anyways, we're like 9 or 10 maybe. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was just something like where one of us scored and like I thought it was a goal, or he didn't. He's like, no way, that wasn't a goal. And yes, it was a goal. Like, what? And we're just uber competitive, clearly at a tiny young age. And so it was really fun. It was in the summer, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds right. Like our summer camp that we always had growing up. Yeah.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing
really,
that.
Yeah, no problem. It's so surreal looking back, being like, yeah, 2 classmates from a class of 113.
Wow.
Were at the Olympics the same year for the same sport for the same country. Like, it's just,
that's insane.
I felt like I was in high school so many times because I'd be walking, like I shared the story already about like being in different rinks and then watching his game. Well, there's so many other stories. Like, one was I was sitting having lunch in the Olympic Village cafeteria, which is so cool because there's countries from all over. Like, you're just eating together, and you can tell because everyone has their different colored jackets on and hats and mittens and stuff. And so I'm just sitting there chatting with my teammates, and all of a sudden, passing by, all of a sudden I hear, "See you, Gigi, we're heading to the rink." And I just like look around, and it's TJ and David Backus just walking by, going to the rink. And I'm like, am I in high school? Like, I felt like it was just TJ and Eric Olam or Kyle Hardwick walking by. Like, because here I am eating with the girls team, and it's as if he's going to his high school guys practice. I'm like, this is the coolest experience. It's so funny to me.
So speaking of the Olympic Village and, kind of seeing different people, different sports, different athletes, who are some of the athletes either from the U.S. or other countries that you got to either speak with or got to watch in an event or had a really cool interaction with, someone you never thought you'd meet before?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind first is Shaun White, the snowboarder. Yeah. Like, just being able to, I mean, he's insane. And so like seeing his skills and talents like was just incredible. And then of course, like, I think skiing is awesome. And so like Michaela Schifrin, I was there in 2010. I think it was when it was Apollo Antono's last Olympics. And just like the speed skating, the intensity of like whipping around, and when those blades, if they crashed, how like deadly and dangerous their skate blades were, like when they hit the walls. Like, that was a really fun event for me to go to. And other than that, it was just kind of like, I'm a huge hockey fan. And so it was really fun to be able to see like Pavel Datsyuk in the Village, or see Ovechkin, or any of the other athletes. I think probably one of the funniest stories is in 2010, there was a girl on my team. She was like 5 foot, like literally I'll give it to her, 5 foot flat. Right. So we're up in the cafeteria in line. Well, next to, or who walks up right behind us is Zdeno Chara. So it's literally like behind, and you're just like, you just keep looking up. Like, you look behind, and then you just crank your head to the ceiling. And I'm like, we got to get a picture of this. And so you got like one who's here, and then you have Chara who's like out of your camera frame. And I'm like, this is just the coolest thing.
That's awesome. So I have to ask this, and you mentioned the speed skating stuff. So I got to know Bonnie Blair pretty well. Her son played college hockey at 3 different schools. played at Minnesota for a little while, Grant Cruikshank.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know Bonnie or John at all, or Dave. I'm sorry, Dave, her husband. But it was in 2022, and I got a chance to interview Bonnie, and I asked her what I'm going to ask you. You're on the podium or wherever you were after you won. You finally got a gold medal. You said, "Yeah, of course, the one that I won the gold in is my favorite, but they're all significant." What would take us back the best you can to that moment when you finally achieved winning a gold medal? Bonnie told me when I asked the question, she said, "Ben, you're going to make me cry. I don't want to make you cry, but I'd love to relive that as much as we can with you, because that's just an incredible moment."
Yeah, I think for me, it was just a accumulation of all the memories of the perseverance, because like it was 12 years and I have had many injuries and I was the oldest player on the team. There were so many question marks and I had
Wow.
switched from positions left and right. Like I ended up playing all 5 positions, skating positions throughout just even that Olympics. Like I was just like, what do you want? Like, am I even on this team? Like, sometimes I'm right D, sometimes I'm left wing, other times I'm lefty, then I'm center, then I'm right wing. Like I just keep, and so I just remember like the medal around my neck, and I just remember like, thank you, Lord. Like this, I just felt so grateful for his, like because I just like felt so much peace in my heart and appreciation for all the hard times that I went through, but also I knew my teammates' journey. Like I trained alongside them and I saw what they overcame. And so it was, I mean, incredible. It's like, it's such a cool feeling, and to see all your hard work. Cause I mean, it's not a easy, like I'd already lost twice. And the thing is that people I think forget is that you can't just go back next year. Like it's not just just let's go back in 1 year. No, you have to wait 4 years, and you have to hope that the timing works perfectly with your body and your physical fitness and obviously the development of other players. Like you just never know. And so for me, it was that moment. I think my heart was just so grateful, and just like it was almost like highlight reels were going through my mind of different moments of times that like, holy cow, this happened. Like after all these other things, it actually happened. Like this is the coolest experience.
It's funny, you talk about waiting 4 years, and obviously there were world championships in between. And I know you guys had won a couple golds at that point in the world championships, but getting over that hump against Canada in the Olympics, I mean, that had to make it even better. I have to imagine if Canada had got upset somehow, you guys would have been disappointed you weren't playing them in the gold medal game.
Oh, 100%. That would have been, I know it happened in 2006 where the U.S. women won bronze, and I think it'd be hard for me. Like it would be so challenging. I mean, because you're the best 2 teams in the country, in the world, and so to not be in the gold medal game, not competing for a gold medal would have just. I'm glad I didn't have to deal with that.
The fire in those games, I saw one live when you guys were. I forget, was it the Champions Tour? Is that what they called it when you used to go around and play U.S. and Canada? Or I forget, there was a name for the series, rivalry series or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you guys came to the XL and played, and I think it was your first year with the team, I want to say, because I think I was still in college. It was my senior year. But the fire and the intensity with those games with the U.S. and Canada, and it's only gotten stronger, I feel like, year after year. It's incredible to watch. I mean, people always talk, well, I thought girls hockey isn't checking. I'm like, there's a very big difference between not checking and not having body contact. And they flirt with that line all the time.
So true. That's really well said. It's like, I mean, I would wake up the next day and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I just played in the US Canada game. Like if I somehow had amnesia and forgot, I would know the next day, just because of how sore I felt and how many bruises were. I'm just like, wait, what happened to me? Like I'd go in the weight room the next day and people would be like, Gigi, seriously, what happened to you? And I'm like, well, it's US Canada. What do you mean what happened? Like that just, yeah, they were easily the best games ever to play in.
Speaking of kind of overcoming injuries, and I think, we touched on this right when we got you on before we started recording, but obviously some tough timing with kind of towards the end of your professional career, COVID hits, seasons are getting canceled. You know, it looked like, to my knowledge, you played about 6 games in 3 years and then came back for a full season to finish it off last year. How tough was that mentally, physically? I mean, that had to have been an absolute grind to stay with it for that long and be able to, you know, come back and go out on your terms, right?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I like stopped. So I accepted a job with the Wild to do broadcasting. And so I thought I was going to play. And then I'm like, okay, there's nothing going on, COVID, all that stuff. And so I didn't play. Like I literally, like for a year and a half, I didn't skate. Except for at my hockey camp. And so I took a break. I still worked out, but I wasn't training. I kind of thought I was done. And then all of a sudden I was at my hockey camp 2023, it would have been. Yeah, because the league was last year in 2024. So 2023, 2 days before they make this announcement that the league is coming in January, I'm like, hey, I think I should like come back and play. Like, I don't know what it'd look like. I don't even know if I can, but I think I'm gonna. Well, 2 days later, everyone's texting me being like, Gigi, did you see about this league? I'm like, I know. And so it was so cool. I was just kind of like, I'm going to ramp up my training, see how I feel. I'm going to start skating again. And it was so different. Like, Mike, you can probably relate to this because we're wired a certain way. Like you do things a certain way, you train the same way, you're prepared. There's just like a process. And I blew that process out of the water. And so I'm like, I have no idea what to expect. I might be terrible or I might be, and it just logically didn't make sense because I'm like, I'm the oldest player in the league. If I was to come back and play right now, and I haven't skated in a year and a half, but it came back so naturally and I felt better than I've ever had. And I think a lot of it is because I took that much time off. Like my body clearly needed it. And I still worked out, but nothing to the extent of that I normally do when training. And I think my body just responded really well. And I loved playing. And I came back and I was like, I started skating again, like in August, and I only had those 3 months before training camp. And I was just like,
Not a
okay,
lot of time.
this is, not a lot of runway at all. But I'm like, you know what? If my skills are there, my work ethic is there, we'll see how my body responds. Like, I think this will be a good fit. And sure enough, it worked out perfectly. Like I couldn't have asked for a better last year to play. And I felt really good physically. And so it was awesome. I was really, really grateful for that last year.
Yeah. I'll let you go here, Ben, 1 sec. What a cool way for you though. You know, you talk about, you know, your age group or your tier of the women's game, you literally saw it all. Like you said, you were a kid, you went from not having something to look up to, then the 98 women's Olympic team comes around, then everything that you were a part of, and then finally realizing this dream of a true women's professional league and getting to play and have that season. That's got to be such a great way to put a bow on it for you.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that I was able to experience what we had worked so hard for so many years, and to be able to be like, wow, like I got to be a part of it, and it was incredible, like so incredible.
So in October of last year, hence the title of our pod, When the Game Ends, what ultimately were the deciding factors when you made that decision on October the 7th? I'm a little surprised you were never on Instagram until last year. Were you just not a social media person, or
I'm
were you just
so bad
behind the
at it? I'm so bad at it. I basically, everyone's like, everyone knows that about me, but I just have never been good at it. Like I'm like, there's nothing that phenomenal going on in my life. I just don't think it's like as noteworthy as many other people's lives are.
That's awesome. I respect that. I'm just having a little fun there, but like, you know, I watched that whole thing when you made your announcement on that date in October. So what ultimately, getting it back on track here, having a little fun there, what were the deciding factors for you, Gigi, in deciding to say, that's it, I've had enough, it's time to go on to the next phase of my life?
Yeah, it was really simple because, you know, people thought, oh, you must be just exhausted or your body must be going, but like I felt physically great. I felt like, I mean, we can go again. Like, but honestly, what it came down to was just, I'm like, you know what? I feel at peace with how my career has gone. Like I've accomplished, or I've been on a lot of different teams, have embraced and like had incredible teammates and so many great memories. Like there's not really much left to do, and I just kind of was like, I think I'm ready for the next chapter. I don't even know what it is, but like I'm ready for it. And I'm really satisfied and grateful for the career that I've had and the journey that I went on. And I just felt like peace anytime I thought or prayed about it. And so I'm like, all right, I don't know what's next, but I clearly feel like this is the right time to kind of hang up my skates, if you will.
That's great that you were able to come to it that way. That's kind of the premise of us starting this podcast is not everybody has that experience. I was one of them that did not have that experience where it's like, I feel like I didn't get to the point where I felt like I accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. Didn't retire on my terms, that type of thing. So it's always great to get both perspectives because we've had both, Ben. We've had guys that have been like, it was really hard. And it's also really refreshing to hear someone like yourself be able to be completely at peace with it, know that you accomplished what you wanted to and move on. And you kind of had broadcasting built in already from the, during COVID and doing the wild stuff. I remember watching you on the TV doing the broadcast and then all of a sudden you popped up. I'm like, good for Gigi. That's awesome. And now you got the Nesson job. Is that the new one?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So what all are you covering with Nesson then? It looks like I saw it doing a little bit. It was a little college hockey. I'm assuming some PWHL.
Exactly. Yeah. So college hockey, PWHL, and then a handful of Bruins games as well. So it's a good mix. I'm really liking it, especially, and it was fun because the Bruins, I was on the game the other day when the Wild came to town. So I was like, this is great. I love talking about both teams.
What are you finding about broadcasting that you like so much? And maybe on the other side, I'm sure you're your own worst critic. I mean, you were,
Yes.
So you know where I'm going here. So it's what I've done for 30 years. So I'm curious to hear your take on the good and where you need to keep trying to raise your game if you feel like you need to do that.
Oh yeah, I don't think that ever dies from athlete, like an elite athlete who just wants to get better, right? Like you're always having that evaluation, analyzing it. How can I improve? And so literally as I'm communicating on TV, I'm like making mental notes. Don't say that. Oh my gosh, scratch that from your vocabulary. Oh, you've already used that phrase. Figure something else out, Gigi. And so it's been fun. I really enjoy, so I do both game analyst and then pre and post game show. And what I love about the pre and post game show is I love breaking down video and teaching. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. And then as far as game analysts, especially with the PWHL, but really anyone, I love being able to talk about why a player is so excellent or skilled or what made that really successful. And for me, it's like a double blessing because I get to talk about my teammates, my old teammates, and some of the players that I like know really well from the other teams in the PWHL. And so it's just like this thing where I can, I love them already. And now I get the voice to add to it, like why they're so good or what sets them apart or what makes them special or what about that specific play makes me so excited, just like the people at home are like, holy they're so excited as well. And so I get to put voice to that. And so it's really cool for me. So I would say both those things, both teaching. I really enjoy teaching and coaching, but then also on the other side of it, I really like seeing the good come out of people and seeing them succeed.
It's such a unique skill to be able to do both those things. I mean, Ben, like, you do a lot of play-by-play. That's your thing that you've been, and you can do both, obviously. But your play-by-play, like everybody's always like, Ben has the voice of a radio guy, right? And so like Gigi, you're talking about being an analyst, doing color and commenting on, how that play happened or how that guy did that or girl or whatever play they're making on the ice. That's a special skill to have. I tell Ben all the time we're doing this. I'm like, dude, you critique me whenever you want because I am very much an amateur. I'm very much a rookie. In fact, the first time we did this podcast when I was in this hotel, I'm going to see if I can find the crank on the chair here. I didn't have the crank in.
Oh,
I was
that's
doing
right.
this the whole time while we were talking because I was just like, I can't sit still. And I watched it back and I was like, oh my God. And then of course my wife gives me a hard time and I think my dad did too. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I got it. So that's awesome to see you having success with it.
But Gigi, so what I've done with Carmi is I just kind of let him go. Like I don't think I've said anything to you, have I, in that regard?
You haven't, no.
And so
you're too nice to me.
No, I'm not too nice. I'm letting it, and I'm sure that Gigi can attest to this in some way. And I've worked with a lot of retired athletes, Gigi, over the years, football, hockey, basketball, and they say the same thing you said. And it's cool because you have a passion for it, you love it, you want to be better at it, you want to be the best, right? I mean, when you played, that was your mentality. So what I like about Carmi is he just kind of finds his way, and we mix together, and I let him be him. I don't want to control this thing. I want to do it together, and I think our mix is each show we get a little bit better.
I've never been a straight A to B line guy. I always take the scenic route.
No, you haven't. No, you haven't. Gigi, I'm curious too. I mean, you've got so many other things. I mean, I think it's cool that you and I know Carmi will appreciate me bringing this up because there's a couple other guests that we've had on that have they've had a plan in place, whether they knew it or not. And you did that with your schools. You said you started doing your camps when you were at Minnesota. So you seem like you have a lot going on in your now retired life, which is awesome because it makes that transition easier. Are there any other things you want to do? Like you have a desire to do other things now that you're not a player anymore?
Well, I wanted to go downhill skiing. I haven't been able to do that in a while, so I'm going to be able to do that soon. But as far as like work and jobs, I think I'll be able to travel more. And so I'm doing a faith and hockey camp in Alaska in May, which will be awesome. I mean,
Cool.
I could never travel that much before because all my time in the off season was dedicated to being home and running my hockey camps in the summer.
Yeah.
But I don't even know, like something popped up for me I'm really passionate about like helping kids or really anyone, but like overcome adversity and whether it's fears or anxiety and help them perform at their best under pressure. And so being a mental skills coach has like really been enjoyable for me and helping kids walk through what are the limitations or the negative or how to respond positively after a mistake. Like how do we build self-confidence, like different things that I know I was challenged with my whole career, and like you just don't give away from that. And so it's really cool to see the growth of these young kids and learning like who they are and how to overcome fear and anxiety and then channel it and use it for good and see them succeed despite what's coming against them. And so again, these kind of things have just fallen into my lap. I didn't even know about them. Never even heard about this option. And it's just kind of opened the door for myself to step in. And so I've really enjoyed doing that. And something that I kind of knew I would already like was broadcasting. And so I've just enjoyed being able to do that a little bit more.
Cool.
You mentioned the faith and the faith and hockey camp up in Alaska. I was just curious because we had Billy Butters on one of our earlier episodes. Have you done any of the Hockey Ministries camps with him ever?
I haven't participated in them, but I remember speaking at a HMI camp before. And what's fun is that Billy was one of my first Bible study leaders when we were at the U my freshman year. And so I know him from so long ago.
Yeah, that was kind of the connection we had too when I got him on. That's when I first met him. And, it's kind of come full circle. He hosts that breakfast of teammates at the state tournament every year. And one of the kids I coached on my first AAA team, his dad would work at the camps and invited me to come to those breakfasts. And it's funny how it keeps coming back to, stuff with guys we've known for a long time and those connections that don't go away. And Billy's a great guy. We had a great talk with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was unbelievable. I mean, we've had a lot of great guests on. You're right at the top of the list too. I like doing this. Carmi knows where I'm going here. Just a couple quick rapid fire things. And this may be hard for you to answer. And if you don't want to answer it, I totally understand that. You had a lot of great teammates. Who's the best player you ever played with in your career?
Oh my gosh. I don't think I can even answer that.
I thought it might be one of those questions, but I thought I'd ask
There's
anyway.
no, I mean, it's a great question. I just, so many different names come to my mind and everyone's so different. Like, I don't know
Right.
how I would pick the best one.
All right. How about the best defensive player you played with?
Defensive.
Yeah. To play defense.
Yeah, let's see. Well, that's probably, I think the first one that came to my mind too in general is Casey Bellamy. I would go with her.
Okay.
She was
Okay.
insane. The forwards, it's like way challenging because I played with Christy, I played with Natalie, I played with the Lamoureux, I played with
Right.
I played with Hillary, Kendall, so that list goes on and on. Whereas I think Casey Bellamy was just in a league of her own.
How so?
Defensively.
How so was she in that
She was
league?
insanely physical. She was an excellent skater. Like her gap control, no one beat her. Like it didn't matter where she was on the ice. If her ability to match speeds with someone coming backwards, like she has a great poke check. She reads the game really well. And if you need the puck to be broken out, she can do it. She can either skate it out with her legs. She can escape pressure and make a quick right play under, I feel like a quarterback saying it, under duress, right? It's like
nice.
In my mind, like a quarterback is essentially like a defenseman because you're taking a look over your shoulder to go retrieve the puck, and you have to like break down to have an F1 coming on me. What direction are they coming up? Is there F2 tight, or is it a 2-1-2? Like, what's the forecheck? Where are my options? And she just was able to break down that pressure, like the defensive or the offensive like structure so well that I'm just like, this woman is like, I felt like every time I was on the ice with Casey, I was like, great, we're never gonna play in our zone when I was playing forward. And when I played defense and played with her, I'm like, this is the best defensive partner I've ever had in my life. And she's like, she has like this sick little toe drag too that she would score with on like her just every now and then in like mini games. Like she's someone you just want on her team. And she's also a player who refuses to lose. Like her competition level is like through the roof. It's awesome.
All right. Last one for me, and I'll let Carmi kind of bring us home here. Toughest player you had to play against? Like, was it a nemesis, or was it just somebody that was always a pain in the neck to play against? I'm guessing it was on Canada.
Well, no, what's funny is what comes to my mind is Andrew Giro.
Really?
Yes, like in practice, you couldn't, like, she was so strong, you couldn't move her. You couldn't like take the puck from her. You couldn't, I'm just like, she's just like amazing. Just let her do her thing. I'm glad she's on my team so I don't get run into the boards.
Okay, cool.
I have one other question in line with your rapid fire, Ben, because I guess I've never really asked this. Like, I know what my answer is from the guys' side. As a women's player at the U, what was the toughest barn or maybe the best atmosphere that you guys would play in on the road?
Well, this is probably going to be confused or like throw you for a loop, but actually the best place we played was not the best rink, but it was the best atmosphere. It was Mercyhurst. Their fans were so like, they knew our roster. They must have pulled our roster up and they were like chirping all of us. It was so entertaining. Like they were spot on with some of the things they were saying and chanting and like screaming. And what normally we would have not many people at the rink, there were so many people at the rink just to like, I don't even know why they were there, but we heard from some of the Mercyhurst girls that it was just like a big game and the student sections just decided to go all out and welcome the Gophers to Mercyhurst. And so that was easily my favorite away game because it was just like unexpected. Like most people are like, there's not going to be many, you'd think Wisconsin, North Dakota, Duluth, something like that. But no, it was this random non-WCHA school.
I thought for sure you were going to say Wisconsin.
Megan Augusta, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go, dropping trivia again, Ben, showing off.
Well, it stems from, as I mentioned in the beginning, it stems from when I worked with Angela that time. So,
Oh yeah,
it just sticks on my brain. I download and delete. I'm sure you do some of that, Gigi, and what you're doing with your television work now. You save the important stuff and you delete the rest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Carmi, anything else on your end?
No, I think we covered everything. Gigi, it's been a long time since we talked, so I really enjoyed getting to catch up with you, and I thank you for being so open and sharing everything. I didn't know if how deep we were going to get into the 2017 strike stuff, but I was cool to get the insight on that. I know Ben appreciated that too, but such a decorated career, and like I said, it's fun to see you doing the broadcasting now as well. So congrats on all the success.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this was fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. We really appreciate it. It's great to meet you, and maybe one day in person. And thanks a lot for coming on. We enjoy the conversation, as Carmi said, and very, very insightful, open, honest. We love that. And continued success to you now in your retirement life from being a player.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Benny, Warroad. You do play-by-play. I'll do color.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll fly in. I'll ride up with Carmi. Let's make it happen. When typically they play twice a year, I presume. When typically are those games?
Usually January.
Both in January.
That's
perfect time to go to Warroad, Ben.
Yeah,
you'll love
nice
it in January.
And cold.
We're staying at Jess Myers' house. So if you're watching this, we're staying at your place. Gigi's going to make it happen finally.
Yeah.
All right. That'll do it. Episode 18 in the books for our great guest today, the Olympian, Warroad star, Gopher star. What a career she had, Gigi Marvin. Mike Carmen, Ben Holden saying thanks for watching. We'll see you next time with an all-new episode of When the Game Ends.